Hello, BookTube. I have a Wednesday Reads for you. If those of you want to pause and get your Goodreads TBR listing open, I have a bunch of books I want to show you, stuff that I'm going to be reading today or tonight. Starting with this one is really strange. It's YA. It just crossed my plate, and I don't know what to make of it. I don't know anything about it at all. But I am intrigued, to put it mildly. This is by Kat Winters, and it's called The Raven's Tale. Look at that cover art. Isn't that incredible? And this is the cover jacket copy. 17-year-old Edgar Poe counts the days until he can escape his foster family, the wealthy Allens of Richmond. He hungers for his life as a student to begin, almost as much as he longs to marry his beloved Elmira Royster. But on the brink of his departure, a macabre muse named Lenore appears to him, tempting him to a life of dark poetry and gruesome tales. Muses are dangerous, frightful creatures that most people believe lead their artists down a path of ruin and disgrace. No respectable person would answer their call. But Lenore steps out of the shadows with one request: let them see me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is YA about Edgar Allan Poe. Those of you who know anything about Poe's biography will know that's extremely hazardous. This author is going to try it. I presume she's read up on Poe's life. And if she's willing to try it, I'm willing to follow along. So I will be reading YA about Edgar Allan Poe. And this comes out, this comes out in April, so it's right around the corner. This next one, yet more historical fiction. I've mentioned that 2019 looks like it's going to be swamped in historical fiction, and this is another example of that. This is Paris 7 a.m. by Liza Whalen, and it's about Elizabeth Bishop. It's about the great poet Elizabeth Bishop. Let me give you. Frida, stop that! Stop it! Come up on the bed. There you go. First of all, isn't that lovely? That is a lovely cover design. This comes out in June. And let's see here. Many of us know and love Elizabeth Bishop for her precise yet heartbreaking poetry. But she was also a meticulous diarist, and it is in one small gap in Bishop's journal that award-winning author Lisa Ryland's new novel, Paris at 7 a.m., takes shape. Inspired by 3 weeks of missing entries in Bishop's journals during 1937, this book is an enchanting and poignant reimagining of the 20-something Bishop's travels throughout France on the cusp of World War II, and of a young poet's awakening as a writer and as a woman. So again, I can't help but think that the author is going to be steeped in Bishop biographies, certainly in the journals, and who knows what this will be like. I can't wait. Historical fiction about Elizabeth Bishop. That is something. Bean, I can barely hear myself talk. Sorry, somebody's a little artsy. Okay, this next one is down the line as well, but I'm gonna gobble it up tonight, I think. Yeah, this comes out in June. This is by Walt Odets, and it is Out of the Shadows: Reimagining Gay Men's Lives. And this comes out in the summer. This author's research and his decades of experience in private practice, activism, and personal life as a gay man have culminated in an authoritative new work, Out of the Shadows. In the book, the author combines clinical analysis with powerful and moving personal stories of friends and patients and of his own, including his loss of the love of his life to AIDS, to illustrate how childhood, adolescent, and adult stigmatization and trauma shape the trajectories of gay men's lives. He also addresses the shocking statistics about gay men living in the ongoing AIDS epidemic. In the United States today, approximately 600,000 gay men are living with HIV. About 2.4% of all gay men newly contract HIV every year, and 50% of gay 18-year-olds are expected to contract HIV by age 50. That last one again, 50% of gay 18-year-olds are expected to contract HIV by the age of 50. Okay. 2 decades ago, in the shadow of the epidemic, Being HIV Negative in the Age of AIDS by the clinical psychologist Walt Odets was published to wide critical acclaim and incited impassionate conversations in gay communities about the country. The book was an in-depth and compassionate examination of the emotional and psychological impact of AIDS on the lives of those living through the epidemic, those who faced the death of friends, the decimation of their communities, and in many cases, their own impending deaths. And he's followed it up. He's followed up In the Shadow of the Epidemic with Out of the Shadows. So this comes out in the summer, but I'm going to read it right away because I lived through that experience. So a lot of this will be direct personal resonance with me. And then this next one, I'm gonna flash right through it like a forest fire, and I think you'll be able to see why. This comes out right around the corner next week. This is by Cyrus Ansari, and it is called George Washington, Dealmaker in Chief. With President's Day just around the corner, I am pleased to provide for your consideration and review a copy of this book. Despite the proliferation of books about the entrepreneurial economy in the last several decades, there has been little attention paid to its origin and evolution in America. In George Washington, Dealmaker-in-Chief, international lawyer, financier, and chairman emeritus of American University presents an entirely new approach to the life of our first president, focused on Washington's business career and how it influenced his presidential policies. Drawing on substantial new material, it is the first definitive treatment of Washington's essential contribution to the development of America's highly successful economic model. And there are a couple of, we're stretching the blanket a couple of times in that. Some of you, if you've read up on Washington, will already know that, of course, this is not the first time that someone has written a book on Washington's business career. This is not the 100th time. This is not the 500th time. And also, drawing on substantial new material, there is no substantial new material. I don't know what claim there is. I haven't read the author's introduction or the beginning of his bibliography or whatever, but there isn't any substantial new information. Those are standard claims for publicity sheets to sort of get you interested, to sort of make you think, why is this the same thing all over again, or is it not? But an entirely new approach to the life of our first president, focused on Washington's business career and how it influenced his presidential policies. We shall see. There is certainly ample ground there for an interesting book, but the thing that will stop it from being interesting is if it's hagiography. The relationship between Washington's business career and his presidential duties would be very familiar to an American living in 2019. Washington viewed his presidency as an arm of a mechanism for helping him to make money, as he used it to further his business empire, not the other way around, and certainly not a wall between the two. And if other books have written about that, if this author decides to just blithely ignore that and pretend that this is a saint who also conducted a thriving slavery-based business enterprise on the side, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, aside from condemn it. We shall see. A new Washington book, we shall see. This next one, a true oddity. I can't wait. This comes out in early March, but I think I'll get to it. I'm going to get to all these right away. But I think I'm going to pitch this around and see if anybody wants a review of this. It's such an oddity, though. The answer will probably be no. This is by Vasari. Vasari, the author of The Lives of the Artists. Somebody decided at Thames and Hudson to commission a new translation of his Life of Leonardo da Vinci, just that, and put it in a beautiful little book. So this is a new translation of Vasari's Life of Da Vinci with all of Da Vinci's artwork provided in color or the sketches. There's the Battle of Anghiari. It's smaller than a big art reproduction would be, but Vasari's Life of Leonardo is a huge percentage, the basis for most of the other biographies of him. Vasari's indispensable when it comes to this sort of thing. So what do we have here? It's a new translation by Martin Kemp and Lucy Russell. Vasari's Lives of the Artists is a classic of cultural history. In his monumental assembly of artists' lives, none is more vivid than that of Leonardo da Vinci, a near contemporary of Vasari, who paints a fascinating picture of the progress of art in the hands of the master. Marking the 500th anniversary of Da Vinci's death in 2019. Had not noticed that. Oh my God, it's the Da Vinci anniversary. The Life of Leonardo da Vinci presents a long-awaited new translation of Vasari's entry in one of history's most extraordinary artists. This new translation, prepared in partnership with Lucy Russell, preserves Vasari's compelling narrative and respects his meaning with new precision. That's an interesting way to put that. It is the first time the life of Leonardo da Vinci is published with illustrations of all the works of art discussed by Vasari, along with a selection of da Vinci's studies and science and technology and works by other artists. Okay, I wonder what they're going to do about the two. There were two different. Vasari did two different editions of this, and they're substantially different from each other. It's always an interest to me. I wonder which one they translate. This beautiful edition is also the first to integrate the text of the 1550 edition with that of the expanded 1568 edition. Oh, wow. Each identified by different colors and fonts, allowing readers to appreciate sections that were omitted from the second edition and sections that were added to the first edition. Oh, that does make this important. I mean, it was important anyway. It's a new translation of Vasari, even a tiny little sliver of Vasari, but that makes this really important. You've got the two side by side, visually distinguished from each other. So you can look and see what's changed. Oh, that is great. Okay, fantastic. All right, I didn't know that. Okay, so this comes out in early March. It's going to be an indispensable little volume, really. If you've got both the editions there, plus all the artwork, in a new translation with a new introduction and new notes, this is going to be one of the, I suspect, I'll have to read it to see, but just the translation alone, this is going to be one of those books that goes on your Da Vinci shelf. You know, despite the fact that Da Vinci is so dramatic and so often written about, that Da Vinci shelf is not big. It's 10 books. So, this will, I think, go on there. I can't wait now. Now I know what it is. And then this next one, we just saw it in a mail haul. It's Edward Kennedy, The Oral History. This is, those of you who are not American, who's not from America, this is the brother of the slain president and the slain presidential candidate, who never became president himself. He had, for most of his adult life, a severely incapacitating drinking addiction. In addition to that, he had a tragedy that happened to him, and that happened to Mary Jo Kopechne. He was driving on a road at night on the Chappaquiddick Island off the coast of Massachusetts, and his car went into the water with Mary Jo Kopechne inside. He got out, swam to shore, and she stayed in the car and drowned. And he later said that he tried to save her and failed, and there's been an endless controversy about what really happened. But the incident was so dire, a young woman dying, that it effectively ended any chance that he would take the White House. So instead, he went into the Senate and was a pillar of the Democratic, side of the Senate for decades. One of his old friends told him late in life, after many friends had said it over the course of his life, but one friend said it once he'd been diagnosed with a terminal illness, with a terminal brain tumor, that he did far, far more. Also, his wife said the same thing, that he did far, far more for the country in the decades where he was in office than he would ever have been able to do in even 2 terms as president. It brought him a lot of comfort, and this is an oral history of everybody who knew him that's still alive, that can still be reached, talking about all the major epochs of his life. I'm sure that there's a section in here on Chappaquiddick. There'll be a section in here on his brothers. There'll be a section in here on the doomed presidential campaigns that he tried to mount anyway, including one against a sitting president, against Jimmy Carter. And then all the later years in the Senate. I don't ever miss a Kennedy book. And this is the next one that I will read. I think we already saw it in the mail haul, but I don't know how many of you watch every single video. Then this next one is history. I think we saw the advanced copy. This is by Philip Blom, and it is Nature's Mutiny. This is the finished copy. This is a book about the Little Ice Age. I wonder if I have. Yes, I have a pub sheet. Let me read you a bit in case you don't remember that. Let's see here. Whether or not we can forestall climate change and its catastrophic environmental effects, one looming question remains unanswered. How will society be altered once resources dwindle and oceans rise? An answer may lie in the past. Nature's Mutiny examines the last great period of extended global climactic upheaval, one that saw the Earth's temperature precipitously fall rather than rise, altering not just the way populations physically coped, but how they thought, fought, conversed, socialized, and traded. Spanning a period that begins in 1570 until about 1680, Philip Blom doesn't span that period. he's probably quite young. Yeah, he's quite young. He doesn't span that period. His book spans that period. Focuses solely on Europe's transformation during the Little Ice Age, when long, severe winters interrupted the millennial-long dependence of Western civilization on local harvests. The temperatures by the turn of the century plummeted at least 2 degrees Celsius, a significant enough change that shortened growing time by nearly 3 weeks. For societies fueled by the availability of staples like wheat, barley, rye, and oats, any disruption in grain production was potentially calamitous. And I read, if I could swear, I remember a book on the Little Ice Age that I read probably 30 or 40 years ago. I'll have to look it up because I'm going to need to know about it and see if I still have it in order to review this thing. And it's coming up. This is coming up. This is due in late February. And I've had the advanced copy of this thing, and I just haven't got to it, and that has got to end. So I will be doing that. But at first, I should rack my brains, look at my reading journal, go on Amazon, and see what book I'm thinking of. It might not have been a book on the Little Ice Age specifically. It might have been a book on the Little Ice Age and how it was reflected in the paintings of the time. I'm thinking it might have been an art monograph of some kind. But I'll find out. Then the last one's a doozy. The last one, I don't know how. I've had the advanced copy. I tried to get into it. And I thought it was too early in the year, and I thought I am just not in the mood for this. And now I can't put it off any longer. I have to read this thing. It's Landfall by Thomas Mallon. It is a novel about George W. Bush and Hurricane Katrina. And let me read you a bit about it here. Set during the tumultuous middle of the George W. Bush years, amid the twin catastrophes of the Iraq insurgency and Hurricane Katrina, Landfall brings a cavalcade of contemporary American politics, which began with Watergate and continued with finale to a vivid and emotional climax. Those are the two previous relatively contemporary historical novels that this author has done. I believe I wrote a review of Watergate. If I did, I'll leave a link down below. The president at the novel's center possesses a personality whose high-speed alterations between charm and petulance continually energize and mystify the panoply of surrounding characters, including First Lady Barbara Bush, Condoleezza Rice, Donald Rumsfeld, foreign leaders like from Tony Blair to Vladimir Putin, and Ann Richards, the legendary Texas figure Ann Richards. A gallery of political and media figures, from the widowed Nancy Reagan to the philandering John Edwards to the brilliantly contrarian Christopher Hitchens, brings this novel to life. Hitchens is going to be in here as a fictional character. Isn't that something? All right. Well, I need to do this. I guess it's just fashion in America now to have short-term aphasia about politics and not to be upset anymore about President W. Bush, because I guess we have all sorts of new things to be upset about. But the way this man handled Hurricane Katrina, the way his administration handled Hurricane Katrina, hence the title Landfall, ought to be anger-provokingly scandalous even now. So, and the previous two books by this author along these lines have been exculpatory, and that is misusing the power of fiction. We shall see. We shall see. I will report back. I will review this thing, of course, but I will report back. But this time I'm just going to read it. I'm just going to divorce it from my memory of the events themselves, the history, and just read it as a novel, and then I'll settle back into outrage when I'm done. So anyway, so that is sort of a Wednesday read. It's a bit of a mismatch here. Let's do a Steve Pyramid. We have Landfall by Thomas Mallon. Historical fiction about living events we all remember. Then Nature's Mutiny, about real-world events that only Deb and I remember. Then Edward Kennedy, an oral history. A new translation of Vasari's Life of Leonardo da Vinci, with tons of supporting material and notes and artwork. Great. Then George Washington, Dealmaker-in-Chief. Then Out of the Shadows, about gay men's lives. That some of those statistics are blowing me away. I'm still thinking about them. Then let me see here, The Raven's Tale by Cat Winters. YA about dreamy teenage Edgar Allan Poe, all of 4 feet 10 inches tall. And Paris 7 a.m. by Lisa Weiland. Historical novel about a young Elizabeth Bishop in Paris on the eve of World War II. So that is what I'll be doing. Plus, I have a big Conan anthology. I've read all of these issues many times, but that's not going to stop me from reading it all again. So that is the reading that I'm doing now for a Wednesday. I would love to hear what you're doing. Of course, we're always chatting in the comments anyway, but I'd love to know what you're reading here in the middle of the week. And that's I think going to do it for today. I don't think we're going to get any more mail. I think you've had quite enough book stuff from me, so I'll wrap this up. If there are any late breaking developments, I'll make another video, but otherwise I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.